The Trump administration has officially nixed regulations barring federal grantees in the Department of Health and Human Services from discriminating against LGBTQ people. And this will have an impact on pretty much every facet of life. So let me explain. According to the 77-page release published in the Federal Register, Obama-era requirements that agencies refrain from discrimination on the basis of sex, religion, sexual orientation, and gender identity, and recognize same-sex marriages as legally valid, violate the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So this is more of the nonsense that we heard from right-wingers in the country in regard to private businesses, whether they should be able to deny baking a cake for a gay couple. Now what the Trump administration is doing is expanding this to also apply to government agencies, as well as publicly funded organizations like adoption agencies and things like that. So HHS grant regulations now state that given the careful balancing of rights, obligations, and goals in the public-private partnerships in federal grant programs, the department believes it appropriate to impose only those non-discrimination requirements required by the Constitution and federal statutes. What they're essentially saying there is that private companies should be able to do what they want. That was what was debated previously. But now what they're saying is that any private company that has received grants or funding from the federal government must abide by the Religious Freedom Restoration Act by not retaliating against any employee who might refuse to provide services to members of the LGBTQ community. So critics claim the new guidance could have wide-ranging implications for agencies that address adoption and foster parenting, as well as homelessness, HIV prevention, elder care, and other public services. There are so many children in this country who need to be adopted, who need foster homes, and to discriminate against members of the LGBTQ community to essentially prevent them from being able to adopt or foster children is just so despicable and goes to the point that I make all the time when it comes to the right wingers claiming that they believe in, protecting life. They don't care about lives. They don't care about lives. You should want to have a large population of people, as many people as possible who of course are safe, who have been vetted, approved to adopt children, but they don't care. They don't care about the children. All they care about is hiding behind their religion to continue discriminating against people whose lifestyles they disagree with.
Yeah. It's an oversimplified term. Giving them the most benefit of the doubt. They want as many people as possible to have lives of whatever quality they end up with. But with the death rate of people giving birth, they obviously don't even care about that. But for this one, obviously we're against the substance of this. I hope that anyone watching this would know that without us going into detail on it. But and this mostly applies to the next graphic that you're gonna get to. What I'm wondering about for this is sort of similar to the last conversation we had, which is, to what extent is this a thing that is just being thrown up as either a signal to the base, something that is intended to clog the works of the first couple of months of the Biden administration? I mean, many of these regulations seemingly could be reversed, and based on the timeline that you're about to get to, I would question whether this might be able to be reversed before it ever goes into effect. I don't know what the experts say, but it seems like this is the sort of thing that is needlessly offensive and cruel, but doesn't necessarily have any reason why it needs to actually go into effect.
Yeah, you make a good point because it wouldn't go into effect until February 11th. So that would be after Joe Biden has been inaugurated. And the rule change is targeted at child welfare organizations. The final rule could also allow a homeless shelter to turn away a queer teen. Yeah, that'll show them. And a senior center to refuse to drive an elderly gay man to his doctors. These people are disgusting, just absolute. Like, yeah, let's go ahead and enact regulations that specifically punch down, go after the powerless in this country, persecute them, make sure that their lives are absolutely miserable. I mean, these are just the worst kind of people. But to your point, John, Yes, I think that Joe Biden's administration can do something about this to ensure that it doesn't, actually take effect and make people's lives more difficult than they need to be. But remember, Biden's got his work cut out for him because it's just this long list of just reversing the damage that Donald Trump has done through executive orders, through what we're talking about right now with HHS. Never mind the health crisis that we're experiencing with coronavirus, the economic turmoil that so many Americans are experiencing right now. It's just a long list of things that Biden has to both reverse and provide real solutions to. And then outside of this, there's the other big area of policy, and that's foreign policy. Mike Pompeo has wasted no time in making it increasingly difficult for Biden to reverse the damage done by the Trump administration. He has further destroyed any diplomatic potential with Iran, maybe rejoining the Iran nuclear deal. That's something that people have been discussing. The Houthi rebels in Yemen, who have been persecuted by both the United States and the Saudi-led Yemeni government. They've been called terrorists or officially labeled terrorists by the US government under the Trump administration. There's just all sorts of horrific stuff happening that is taking place intentionally to make Joe Biden's job a lot more difficult in reversing Trump's damage. So,
yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. There's obviously there's huge things we'd like for them to do legislatively, and we're gonna try to pressure them to do that. And in theory, they can because they control the House and they control the Senate. But the Senate Republicans aren't going anywhere, and Mitch McConnell, I don't feel like in his even older age is going to be more down to work with the Democrats than he was under Obama. But at the very least, what we can expect and hope for is we will get judges, because some of the ways they've been nominated have been changed since the Obama years, and we now have control of the Senate, so that can actually happen. And like this story, for instance, like the entire story that you just talked about, how many stories just like this have we talked about in the last 4 years? Some random regulatory attack against the LGBTQ community, specifically against the trans community, things like that, environmental deregulation, so many things like that. At the very least, there's no excuse for him to not both reverse as much of that as is possible, including the nearly 200 different environmental deregulatory efforts that Trump is engaged in, and all of these other areas as well. That is something that in theory could be a constant source of small bits of good news that aren't necessarily going to be the high profile pieces of legislation that we immediately want, but they are going to make a significant impact on people's lives, all sorts of different people across the country. And so that is at the very least something that we should be able to count on.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.